Can I help you?
Yes, I'd like a ham and cheese omelet, an order of lamb fries.
I'm sorry. We stopped serving breakfast, but we are on the lunch menu now.
But I want breakfast.
Well, you can't have it. We're not serving it.
Are we there
yet?
Hey, that's not funny.
I've got my eye on you, Jay Quellen.
All right,
you're lost.
I'm gonna just stop talking. Finally.
Show me the money!
Hey, where's the beef?
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Well, Lottie frickin' da!
Now stand aside, worthy adversary. 'Tis but a scratch.
Dodge this.
Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Clearly, you've never been to Singapore.
Everybody knows a white girl named Amber that's crazy, okay?
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the intersection of faith, family, and filmmaking. You're listening to Fearless with Mark and Amber, a behind the scenes of our filmmaking ministry, Fearless Features, where we are creating educational, documentary films about the issues impacting our culture and society from a biblical perspective, and pursuing truth above all else. I'm Amber Archer, and joining me is my husband, author, director, speaker, Mark Archer.
Catch me outside. How about that?
You can learn more about us and the movies we're making by visiting fearlessfeatures.org. It's also a great place to make that one-time or monthly donation if you are passionate about reaching the lost for Christ through film. Visit fearlessfeatures.org to share your support today.
Hey, baby. What are you doing?
Hey, baby.
Okay, so you have a new open.
Yes, thank you. Every month, tune in on the first episode of every month to hear DJ Mixmaster Mark performing his best. So.
Okay, the last bit, I'm glad that you played it for me. I probably would have stumbled through the intro. Would you like to play for the audience the rest of that clip?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Hold on. Here we go. This is John Christ, stand-up comic. This is, well, it speaks for itself. Here we go.
Like, if you're setting me up on a blind date and my two choices are like Esmeralda and Amber, who do you think I'm going with? Wrong. Esmeralda. Ambers are always crazy. Ambers are always... Everybody knows a white girl named Amber that's crazy, okay?
Guilty as charged.
Esmeralda will take you to a restaurant you never heard of. Amber will stab you in the parking lot, okay?
Okay, I will not stab you in the parking lot. However, it was pretty funny when we watched it.
But I do know a white girl named Amber who's crazy.
Yes, right.
So.
All right, so what do we got going on today?
Well, let's see. We should recap. So coming up is the Marriage Enrichment
Day in Kendallville, Indiana. Mm-hmm. It's February 22nd at Crosspoint Church in Kendallville. Right. And you can register online at fearlessfeatures.org/marriage-retreat. And I'll leave a link for that in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then also, do you want to follow up on the discussion we had last week?
Yeah.
Rhonda?
So last week we sat and talked with Rhonda Miller of Purple for Parents United, and she was telling us about some of the bills. One particular that we focused on last week was Senate Bill 143, mm-hmm. and it is the parental rights bill. So, and it did in fact cross over, is now headed to the House, and that happened January 28th.
Okay.
So just so everybody knows, if you were listening last week, it's really important for everybody to pay attention what's happening through legislation in your state.
Right. And
state houses.
And if you didn't hear that discussion, it's an interesting thing to look at, because on the one hand, you're seeing a lot of these being pushed through conservative legislatures, parental bills of rights. Mm-hmm. And it's not that it's altogether a bad thing. However, I think Rhonda made a very good point that the danger in it is putting things into legislation that can then later be very easily manipulated by mm-hmm. the left. Mm-hmm. And so there's, I think, a fundamental discussion there, because there's a lot of, and I think knowing who's behind this mm-hmm. in Indiana, pretty sure it's going to get passed.
Yeah, probably.
And it will be held up as a good thing, and look at what we've done for you. And I can't completely argue with them. Okay, this is good. Mm-hmm. On the surface, it's good.
Just like on the surface, it was good in the House bill, I think it was 1002, where the legislature was trying to remove requirements of learning the Declaration of Independence, reading the Federalist Papers, the Mayflower Compact.
Well, none of that is good on the surface.
Well, but I mean, but you see what I mean. There's whatever intent there is, like whose idea was that?
Yeah. Well, and what we likened it to was going back to in the Mine Polluters. we filmed in the Nebraska legislature when they were bringing up the what's the
obscenity exemption?
Obscenity exemptions. Yeah, the obscenity exemptions that were in Nebraska. The obscenity exemptions were put into place in the mid 70s, I would say. So it started being pushed into state legislatures in the 50s. And over the next 20 plus years, it went state to state. And it was pretty much, it
made it into 43 states.
Yeah. And it was kind of boilerplate legislation. It was sold as seemingly a good thing. And one of the senators, the former senators, state senators in Nebraska, talked about, hey, the way that it was sold and the reason we passed it was for educational purposes. And we talked about that. If you're teaching biology, even in high school, you have to show pictures and illustrations of things that under obscenity statutes could be considered obscene material. And so on the surface, it was, we should make an exception for this because you don't want to throw a biology teacher in jail because he or she, showed, illustrations
of anatomy
for the purposes of instruction. And same with college, right? So certainly at college. So that's how it was sold, and it seemed fine. But what has happened, the reason why all of this pornographic material has been snuck into the schools is the left has exploited that as a loophole and said, well, this is just educational material and therefore you can't ban it. And so that is the whole point of the discussion that we had with Rhonda is, okay, however, you can go into this later and change one or two words and change the meaning of it completely.
Well, not only that, but you see how long it actually takes to remove. I mean, there are still states, even now in 2025, who are working to remove those obscenity exemptions.
Right.
Because it is so bad in the schools and what they're doing and teaching children and disseminating to minors.
And the thing you got to remember, it is exceptionally difficult to remove legislation. It's much easier to pass it into law than it is to remove it.
Right, which is why we're talking about this parental rights bill.
Yeah.
Like cautionary tale. Please, let's kind of look at everything, all angles of the way this is going to be used.
Yeah, exactly. So,
okay.
Anyway, so if you need to revisit that's last week's episode. You can go back and
I'll leave a link to it in the show notes.
Anyway, I actually have a couple things here, so let me find my buttons. Okay, if you've watched Dysphoria, one of the books that is referenced is called Unmasked. It's by a guy named Andy Ngo, Andy Ngo. No. Unmasked, he wrote to talk about, he basically was undercover. He writes for the Post Millennial. This is the guy that Antifa tried to kill several times. One of the ways that they tried to kill him was during a street riot in Portland. He was embedded in Rose City Antifa, which is Portland. And in one of these riots, they made, where is it? Which ice cream shop is it that we go to where they have concrete mixers? Is it Culver's?
Yes.
Okay. They actually made a concrete mixer. So what looked like a slushy drink was actually full of concrete. And this is what they threw at him and actually did brain damage. I mean, knocked him unconscious, did serious medical damage to him. That was only one of a couple times where they actually tried to kill him in the streets. Okay. And so Andy Ngo, one of the bravest journalists that I have ever seen to expose these people.
And interesting about him is he's a homosexual.
He's a homosexual. If you look at his Twitter feed, he's got the little pride flag. I mean, he's, I don't know where he stands on everything, but he has been very good at exposing the LGBTQ mafia.
Well, it's similar to Gays Against Groomers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they are doing so much work
Yeah.
to expose the things that are being done to kids.
Yeah.
And
Gays Against Groomers is doing the church's work. Right? They're doing more than the evangelical church in America ever has because they won't even talk about it. That's another discussion.
I say, moving on. Don't get stuck.
Anyway, so I have this clip from Andy Ngo. He has been on this, talking about this. You remember last year, and we talked about when we were working on Dysphoria, that you were going to see the most violent generation.
Yes.
Because when these kids who have been duped into believing all this stuff about being multiple genders and being able to change your gender, things like that, when they start to wake up to, and whether you're talking about some of them that have had these procedures done, or if you're talking about the ones who just have believed it and then they start to come out of the haze and realize, and we said, what reaction do you have when you wake up and realize that you've been lied to? Well, if the realization is not as a result of being enlightened by Christ, then what happens is you wake up to it and you become enraged. That's what you're starting to see here. And he's been on this story about a trans terror cult.
Fantastic.
So I have some audio from his, he put this on his X feed, and I'm just going to play this and then we can talk about it.
I'm in shock. I think we are learning details about a trans terror cell in the United States that has claimed a fourth victim. So the deadly shooting of the U.S. Border Patrol agent on Inauguration Day in Vermont near the Canadian border is not just a story about a homicide. According to court filings and my own reporting and interviews with somebody who knew the deceased German national, these are two people who are linked or members of a trans terror cell that was based in California who was involved in 3 prior murders. I'm quite in shock. The murders happened in late 2022. There was one earlier this month, and then now in Vermont, that would bring the body count to 4 murdered people across the United States. Read my report, and I'm going to keep digging on this. There's a lot more to find out. Subscribe to me on X, follow my work, and let me know your reactions. Thank you.
Thoughts, comments, questions, concerns?
Doesn't surprise me.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
I mean, through all the research that we've done, it really does not surprise me.
This has been, and when you read his report, he's very good at going into a lot of detail on these things. And I can't recommend his book highly enough. It's called Unmasked. It's been out for a couple of years. Tucker Carlson has recommended it. It really is very in-depth. And so it's not that hard to understand, but in case you're not up to speed on the Antifa, trans, LGBTQ, BLM, how it all ties in. Antifa has its roots in Nazi Germany, and Antifa is anti-fascist, right? So they are communists. And in Nazi Germany, they were fighting against the fascists, which is the National Socialist Party or Nazis, right? So whenever you hear of socialism, think of Nazis. That's what National Socialism. Antifa. So Antifa is at its core, they're communist and anarchist. Mm-hmm. Anarchists want no government. They want no law. The anarchy is, free for all, no structure, anything. They have embraced the LGBTQ alphabet mafia, and that is why you see them being so violent. And so when you get people who have embraced this mindset, and if you read his article, I'm pretty sure that several of the members of this trans terror cult, they are trannies, and so they're already mentally not right, and they're doing things to their body and their body chemistry that makes them even more unstable. And I'm not talking about they're just a little violent. In the article, he talks about how they were caught with full auto machine guns, body armor, explosives. I mean, they're deadly serious about this. They are dangerous people.
Well, and I think too, because you had said, if you're not up to speed on this, and I think that's the thing. All of us have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
It's no different. You and I did not know half of the things when we even started on the mind polluters.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like shocking. I think just starting down the rabbit hole of that. But once your eyes are open to what is going on, there is a real sense of peace and because you understand it more. This isn't shocking to you anymore. And it's part of the desensitization.
Yeah, we know what you're saying.
Yeah, is that what?
Desensitizing.
Desensitizing you. Like, why am I overcomplicating this? No. But it is part of desensitizing your moral compass.
Yeah.
And so you can see that and you can see it as you watch the mind polluters and dysphoria, just how the left
Title IX.
and Title IX,
Yeah.
just how the left is using all of these things to bring about the chaos in our culture.
Yeah, that's the point of it. The left is they're all about creating chaos to destroy Western society, everything that Western society stands for. That's why they're anti-police, anti-law and order, anti-nuclear family, because those things all create a stable society. And if you're an anarchist, you don't want a stable society. And so these people are they can't be reasoned with. You have to fight them. So anyway, thought that was interesting. So let's go to break. I have a couple of other interesting articles about the Trump effect.
Okay.
We're seeing right now, and we'll BRB.
It's very powerful, and it's well done. It covers a broad range of problems that we have today in the world. I think that it's something that everybody needs to see.
I was shocked by CPS being involved, and I was shocked by the secrecy, keeping the secrets from the parents of what the children are being told and what they're being taught, and not being made aware of it and secretly indoctrinating these kids is absolutely shocking. It's absolutely horrible, and it needs to stop.
I was shocked. A lot of different things are pulling together. I don't think the expanse of how bad it is, people don't know about. All of the different elements of what's happening in the world today, somehow you pulled it to within 2 hours and 15 minutes.
What stood out to me is I've been watching Klaus, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. I see that thing coming like crazy, but I didn't realize the association with dysphoria. And it's important to see that this thing has been inculcated into the school system and that it is now in place. It's not coming, it's in place.
You think, oh, that can't be going on. And the more I watched it, I thought, this is exactly what's going on.
Okay, so Speaking of the Trump effect, you want to start?
Yeah, I was really excited. So January 31st, everyone got the Dear Colleague letter. We talked about Dear Colleague letters in previous podcasts when we were talking about Betsy DeVos's book.
Yeah.
I can't remember the title of it right now, but she just was talking about how when new administrations come in, they write these letters. Basically, it's letters of intent and how the laws are supposed to be applied and
policy interpretation.
There you go. Basically. And so when Trump was just elected into office and finally sworn in, on January 31st, a letter went out to clarify, effective immediately. The United States Department of Education Office for Civil Rights will enforce Title IX under the provisions of the 2020 Title IX rule rather than the recently invalidated 2024 Title IX rule. So this is everything that we talk about in Title IX. We made an entire film about Title IX because you know what the thing is? It doesn't matter who is in office. This now is history to remind you of what they are trying to do. And now I am so excited for how we can look at it and approach it to see how this can be overruled and overturned. Because it's all, especially because there were men and women's sports, you got men and girls' locker rooms, boys, whatever. So recognizing biological facts of male and female, and there are only two genders, is where we stand today in 2025. Praise the Lord.
Yeah. But as we pointed out, it doesn't just make these people go away.
No.
It will curtail some of the more blatant pushes of this in society and the schools, but they're not going away. They're still here.
No, and in fact, I'll leave a link to the Dear Colleague letter in the show notes for you guys to read for yourself.
Yeah. And speaking of law and order, one of the things that has just been, and I've been shocked at how many people in the church have been so misled about the border policy.
Okay.
And I'm trying to be compassionate about kind of how I see them reacting. The fact of the matter is that when people come in illegally, that makes them criminals. They're
instantly breaking the law.
They have broken the law. And so for the church and I'm talking about, the church, the body of Christ, but also churches as corporate institutions, to harbor them and hide them is not right.
No.
And I've heard a lot of these arguments on social media, and I don't engage too far with it because I think there's just a fundamental misunderstanding here. You would expect no less if you tried to enter another country illegally, right? As Western society, we understand if you want to travel into another country, you need a passport, you need a travel visa, you need all these
proper documentation.
And when you go into that country, they want to know who you are, why you're there, how long you're staying,
what vaccines you've had.
Right. And so we expect that. Well, we need to expect the same on our border.
We do expect the same. It's just that people want to make up their own rules about of who it's applied to.
Yeah. This is
and how it's applied.
This is part of what's bankrupting us, is because we have allowed so many people to come in without any legal authority to do so. I got this article from InfoWars, and it's titled, "It's Like a Switch Was Flipped. Border Encounters Plummet 94% under Trump." During Trump's first 9 days in office after new border measures were implemented, there were an average of 126 daily encounters at the border versus 2,087 per day during the last 2.5 weeks of the Biden administration.
That is insane.
And I'll put the link in the show notes. You got to see this graph. It's just like it went off a cliff. During his 2024 campaign, Trump vowed to crack down on illegal immigration by continuing construction on the border wall. Yes. Conducting the largest mass deportation in U.S. history. Slapping tariffs on Canada and Mexico until they control the situation from their end. Mm-hmm. You can't do this alone. They're the ones that are letting them through.
And encouraging them to keep on their way.
Yeah, exactly. To that end, there were more than 3,500 illegal immigrants who were arrested during Trump's first week in office, including over 1,100 in a single day. It also talks about the opening up of a 30,000 bed facility in Guantanamo Bay. Mm-hmm. This is one of those things too that I bleeding heart liberal minded Christians that I'm seeing on social media crying about how, you can't send women and children to Guantanamo Bay. The facility there is no different than any other refugee camp. Listen, they became refugees when they left home and illegally entered our country. And what has Trump said? The worst first, right? So what they're doing right now is they're going after these, MS-13, Tren de Aragua, these
violent
criminals,
gangs.
violent criminals who have come in and taken over whole apartment complexes. They're
killing
human
people,
trafficking, drug dealing, everything. Let's not cry about these people. There's nothing to cry about there. This is, again, how you restore order in society. There has to be penalties to when the law is broken. Any thoughts on that? I have one more article.
No, go ahead.
I thought this was interesting because it's talking about the Sundance Film Festival.
Okay.
So, and I've been to the Sundance Film Festival twice, but it was a long time ago. 97, I had a movie there. And then I went back the following year in 98.
You say that so casually. He had a movie there and he won.
Go
ahead.
And you can read about that in my new book when it comes out.
Yeah.
Overt anti-Trump resistance, quote, failed to show up at glitzy 2025 Sundance Film Festival. So the Sundance Film Festival, it's in Park City, Utah every year. It was started by Robert Redford. Mm-hmm. In the independent movie world, there's about 10 big film festivals that are worth going to. Sundance is right up there on top. So if you have an independently produced film, you get into something like Sundance, you're going to get a distribution deal 99% of the time. So that's why it's such a big deal. It's like being nominated for an Oscar, right? And if you go and you win something, well, then that's even better. So the 2025 Sundance Film Festival, so I haven't been to the Sundance Film Festival since 1998. So things have changed.
It's the late 90s.
It's been a while. The late 1900s was when I was there. The 2025 Sundance Film Festival appears to be avoiding the overtly anti-Trump political demonstrations that have become synonymous with the festival in recent years, according to a report published by Daily Variety on Tuesday. Now, I have to add, when I went to the festival, there was nothing political there. It was an arts focused festival.
It was still about the arts.
It was still about the arts. Yes, there was a lot of overtly weird and lefty people there, but it wasn't a political
And you all got along.
And we all got along just fine.
Yeah.
After President Donald Trump was inaugurated for his first term in 2017, the festival was host to countless anti-Trump demonstrations and speeches. Chelsea Handler led a women's march on Main Street, Park City, with over 8,000 people. And artists such as Mary J. Blige used their film premieres as an opportunity to denounce the new president. As noted by Daily Variety, there has been a stark contrast between this year's Sundance Film Festival and years prior. Chelsea Handler, let's see, that's the picture. Fast forward 8 years, and it's a very different picture. Trump is back in power, but the resistance movement he sparked failed to show up in Park City.
I wonder why. Do they have...
I think they're demoralized, honestly. That's what I think. The media outlet claimed that the lack of political theater at this year's festival is partially by design, with publicists asking journalists to avoid asking their clients political questions. Publicists implored journalists to avoid asking their clients political questions, while celebrities who previously came out swinging against the MAGA movement were less eager to sound off. Why do you think that is?
Well, because they all need dollars to produce their next films.
Right. Because people, it was such a resounding mandate. And I think probably too, I really think there's a political shift happening in Hollywood, especially the left coast.
Well, who was it that Trump? It was Mel Gibson and Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
I believe he just put in place as
The goodwill ambassador.
Yeah.
Yeah, ambassadors to Hollywood or something
like that.
Although there have been no major demonstrations against the new administration, according to Variety, many of the films that premiered at the festival had unmistakable political undertones, highlighting communities under attack by Trump and his followers, or offering alternative visions of the world. Christian Toto, podcast host, and has a website called Hollywood and Toto, weighed in on why he thinks this year's Sundance has been lacking its usual political stunts. He said, blame several factors for the weak Resistance sequel. The industry is in trouble thanks to the pandemic's fallout. I will agree. 2020 is when the theaters died.
Yeah.
Very sad. The dueling 2023 industry strikes and most recently the devastating LA wildfires. Actors realize getting overtly political doesn't help their bottom line at such a challenging time. Hollywood may be starting to realize that their influence over the public has been greatly diminished over the last 4 years, I think, with the 2024 election giving this theory some legs. I wouldn't say some legs.
Well, imagine what have we been what's been injected into society the last 4 years? It's all of the homosexuality, the trans, gay, DEI.
Yep.
I mean, we've all been subject to that.
Yeah. And let's face it, Hollywood has become ugly, physically ugly.
Yeah.
Toto pointed out that celebrities, quote, did all they could do to drag Kamala Harris across the finish line, and it failed. They recognize their influence is waning and MAGA is on the rise. Some of the world's biggest artists, such as Beyonce and Kelly Rowland, pictured here. Yeah, picture of
Let's
Beyonce.
not forget about Oprah Winfrey.
Just disgusting. Although irrational fears of retribution from the Trump administration against celebrities critical of the president may also be playing a part in their decisions to lay off politics at this year's festival.
Well, good for them. Maybe they've learned something. I don't know.
Last paragraph. A few stars and publicists have an irrational fear that they'll be punished for being critical of all things Trump. You mean like the way that you've punished the rest of society? The way the Biden administration has literally had political enemies put into prison?
Yeah.
No, what you're worried about is that we won't buy tickets to your crap movies anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is already happening.
That's more projection than anything else. Late night hosts have been pummeling Trump for nearly a decade, and no one is sitting in his gulag. Thank you. The only ones sitting in the gulag are the Christian conservatives. Thankfully, Trump has pardoned nearly all of them. So I just thought that was interesting because I haven't been to that festival. We almost went 1 year. But it has certainly changed from what it once was, apparently, because it was nothing. You wouldn't see anything like that.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s. It was.
Oh, hey, you were just talking about festivals, and we actually submitted Title IX to the Christian Worldview Film Festival, and there were over 2,000 movies that were there or submitted, and Title IX got an honorable mention.
Honorable mention, didn't get into the festival.
Right. Hey, but not bad for leftovers of dysphoria and a storyline that needed to be told.
Yeah.
And
well, I should also recount the story. So when we did Inwood Drive, we got Inwood Drive and we submitted it to that festival.
Yes.
We submitted it to several festivals. The Christian Worldview Film Festival was one that we thought, okay, this one we probably could could get into this because it fits. And just so you know, I mean, just because you get into something like Sundance once doesn't mean that you're going to get in every time.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's not like they go, oh, it's a Mark Archer film. No, that's not how it works.
No, it's not how it works.
And I can tell you that because 98, we submitted the film that I had just done then called American Real, and it didn't get in. And it's because it wasn't a festival kind of film. Festival films have to be kind of quirky, and American Real wasn't. It was way too mainstream. And anyway, it is what it is. Inwood Drive we submitted, but then we had to pull it because we sent them the first cut of the film, and then Klopfer died, and then they found the babies, and so we had to go back into production to basically recut the film. We were in production for another 6 months. So we knew that we couldn't submit it because the film wasn't done. So I think we probably were going to get in because they were a little upset that we were pulling it.
Yeah.
And we said, sorry. So then the Mind Polluters, we didn't bother. Dysphoria, we were going to submit, but it was too long.
Yeah, I talked to the guy there at the Christian Worldview Film Festival, and we were like 10 minutes over, and it was just one of those things that we decided we're just not gonna we're not gonna do that to the festival. And
because festival programmers you have to
a certain
have
amount
a
of time.
schedule, right?
Yeah.
And Dysphoria was 2 hours and 12 minutes. And the maximum was 2 hours. And so, yeah, we had that conversation. We thought, it's probably
I mean,
not.
because the most powerful part of the film is the last, 10 minutes. And so to miss that, because it came against a break.
Right.
And so
you would have people that would be leaving because they're trying to get to their next event.
Yeah.
Their next screening, and they would have missed the end.
Yeah.
And so we just decided. So Title IX, we saw, we'll throw it out there.
So yeah, you guys, so I'll read. So this came in last week, January 28th. Thank you for submitting your film Title IX to the 2025 Christian Worldview Film Festival. Because we have received a record number of submissions this year, and because our overall screening capacity has decreased, we have had to decrease our overall number of official selections. It has always been hard to win an official selection, Laurel.
Yeah.
But this year, the competition has become much more fierce. We receive lots of great submissions, but unfortunately, it is not possible to show all submitted films during 2 days of screenings. Though Title IX was not chosen to screen at Christian Worldview Film Festival, because of its overall excellence, it will still receive an honorable mention. Many factors have come into play during the selection process. Each film undergoes an extensive screening process in which the film is independently scored by multiple judges on nearly 40 factors divided between worldview, storytelling, and technical merits. Some films failed to meet the criteria provided in the submission guidelines, and others simply scored less overall than other films in their category. We hope you can join us at the Christian Worldview Filmmakers Guild, which will be held March 10th through the 12th. Hey, here's a little plug if you want to go. Just prior to the festival, we have organized more than 20 unique filmmaking workshops and masterclasses taught by over 20 Christian filmmaking professionals. This will be a great opportunity to hone your skills and network with other filmmakers, and just to be encouraged too. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's in.
So we got this cool little Laurel.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I appreciate it.
I do too. I mean, it's great. I think just to be in continuing the biblical worldview. You know, that's where we stand. Everything is through a biblical lens, and so I'm excited Title IX even got somewhere, For so long it's been beat up and shut down. So to see it actually get an honorable mention at a film festival, a Christian film festival, is exciting.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I think that festival is in March.
It's
Atlanta, north of Atlanta.
Somewhere, something like that.
Yeah. So anyway.
I can leave a link to it in the show notes.
So
yeah, the festival dates are the March 12th through the 14th.
Yeah. And we're not going.
No.
Just FYI, but I'm sure it's a great festival. So
yeah.
All right, that's it. I guess we're
so with that.
Here.
Hey, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening through to the end, and be sure to click that subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and share this with your family and friends. Until next time, march on, saints, and be filled with the Spirit.
I don't like you because you're dangerous. I am dangerous.